Hey, Ron. How you doing? Hey, Zach. How are you today?
Doing well yourself?
I'm doing fine, thanks. What do you think of yesterday's Amazon thing?
It was pretty neat. I didn't know Amazon did anything like that. And so I was trying to think about ways that we incorporate it with our business and and if we can, is that, with all the options we have, is that the best use of our time and efforts to do it? Yeah, yeah. I'm not 100% sure if we'll go that way, but it's pretty interesting to see what's out there.
Yeah, I think it's worth an experiment. It's not a high bar. It's not a lot of money or anything. And she didn't say it in the meeting, but there's hundreds of millions of people on Amazon. So,
Absolutely.
to get involved with Amazon on e-commerce is actually quite expensive in terms of loading your products and negotiating for shipping and yada yada yada. So this is a really no friction way to get into the Amazon ecosystem uh, without a lot of drama and a lot of cost, and to try it out. And these folks are a new unit within Amazon, so they've got visibility right to the top. So I'm hoping that we can leverage that relationship for any of us who want to get on Amazon in other ways, that this would be, a direct referral from them to somebody uh, in the Amazon system would probably make it easier than trying to go through it yourself. That's my thinking.
Yeah, and to have their help, kind of advocating along and helping you through those steps, because they clearly want to get more people on it and get it up and running and make it a successful thing. So have the internal pushes. It's quite nice.
Yeah, it's called being in on the ground floor.
Yeah,
And so sometimes it's riskier because you don't have all the history and background, but at the same time, it's also because they're really essentially not charging us. It really isn't a heavy lift from my perspective.
hmm
Well, I was really amazed when with the fact that it sounds like if you're getting in early and are ready, they're technically paying you to do it. But I was amazed to see how early, like, that you were able to get connected with them in this explore. I think she said there was only 10
Yeah.
businesses.
Well,
I mean, that was mind blowing right now.
well, when they started, they weren't really thinking of shopping. There was really more a tour guide thing.
Right.
So that's where a lot of the design of their system went, and their system is really unbelievably cool. Like, one of the things that they kind of glossed over, which was really phenomenal, is that using the video camera, a customer can click on that video camera, and you as the host will see where they clicked, and then they can buy that item with their Amazon account, even though you aren't integrated with Amazon. Think about that for a second, right? So that's a credit card. That's people buy stuff at Amazon like they're buying free water. It's insane. So I really like that aspect of it. I think once they get to the one to many, it's going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
I think if you're a boutique or some kind of like a chocolate shop in Asheville, it's fine selling one-on-one, but it sure would be cool to sell 1-on-10 ideally. I just think technically the problem they're having a couple of problems. One is they're global, so when they do something, they have to be really careful of how that impacts their ecosystem. So, for example, the reason the food is not technically allowed at the moment is mostly because of customs and exports in certain countries. That it's not really a technical problem; it's more a legal problem. So they're working on all of that stuff, and in my opinion, they'll have it figured out at some point. Also, this is just one of the live streaming commerce tools that we're going to be introducing to you all. Some of them are well, the rest of them have nothing whatsoever to do with Amazon, and they're similarly priced, and also maybe even maybe more applicable to some of you. So we'll be going into that, but I believe that what's happening is I don't know how much you know the history of e-commerce, but the history of e-commerce, and where you read and hear about things like SEO, all of that stuff is a extremely technical kind of background thing. And you look at Amazon, for example, every single page on Amazon looks exactly the same. And that's because it's optimized for SEO and for search. It's not really optimized for discovery or experience or you as the merchant relating to that customer. So what we're seeing now, because of the pandemic and the dramatic increase in people online buying stuff, we are now seeing the opportunity to engage with the customers and to sell your value proposition and your relationship and et cetera. So it's really more like what everyone is used to in terms of their business side of it. We have one of our members here in the group was telling me that when she is out dealing with a customer face to face, she has this incredible closing rate. It's like, really, really high, and she makes a lot of money on these physical interactions with her customers. And she hasn't been able to figure out how to do that online because the tools really haven't been evident. How do you do that? How do you connect with these people? How do you communicate your personality? And this Amazon tool that we saw yesterday is a pretty good example. I think you can see the potential. And as we open up other things to you, I think you'll get pretty excited. We have some pretty powerful tools for live streaming e-commerce because it's I believe it's the next stage of e-commerce where we go from catalog where we click through pictures and we actually turn into engagement and to experiences, which frankly a large percentage of the audience, particularly millennials and Generation X, they prefer that. They prefer experiences to transactions. So, it's just something that's high on my priority list to share with you all. And I've just got to build you a little bit of a foundation before we unleash the hounds so to speak. But we have a lot of stuff coming, so stay tuned. All right, so it's a little bit after 1. Others may join us. So you're going to have me as your instructor today. I pity you all, but we're going to go through branding, and we're fortunate to have some really good materials from the UNC Chapel Hill Entrepreneurship and Economic Development team that's agreed to share some of their stuff with us. So I'm going to go through this presentation. The presentation will be made available to you, so you don't have to worry about copying stuff down or whatever. And we, of course, we record all these, so we are getting our act together. You will eventually, hopefully in the next day or two, be able to go to our YouTube channel and see all of the classes in order, which actually include last fall also, which is different than what you're seeing. But all of that is on our YouTube page, and you can go over stuff again or see it again if you need to. So any questions or thoughts at this point from anybody? I did want to make one more point, because I have had a couple of conversations with folks in the class. So if you don't have a retail store, or you don't have a physical location that lends itself to the Amazon Explorer that we looked at yesterday, one of the things to look for are partners that you might be able to work with. And it could be a retailer that you work with. It could be some other organization, even a church or a community organization, that you could do one of these events as a fundraiser for that group. And you can connect with their audience. If you're just online only, or you don't have a retail presence. So think in terms of partnerships that you could do with people. It could be a retailer that you're trying to get into. It could be a community group, any number of things. But the tool itself is really easy to work with. You just need a physical place where you can show your products or your services. And so keep that in mind. If you don't have something, maybe you can use someone else's facility. So with that, I'm going to share the screen. And let's see here. Okay. And hopefully you all can see that. Let's see here. Can everybody see that okay? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through branding, and hopefully this will work. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so I apologize if it's a little jerky. I'm having a few little problems here for some reason. Okay. So you've heard the word brand, and you may be really familiar with it and an expert on it, but I want to go through kind of what is a brand, at least from the point of view of this presentation, and hopefully it will help you all think about what you're doing with your product and service and how some of this might apply. So what is a brand? It's believe it or not, it's what you think and feel about an organization or a person. So for example, we're familiar with the Nike swoosh. The Nike swoosh, you can see that swoosh with no text, and you know exactly what it is. And there are a handful of brands that have that kind of awareness, if you will. The story of the Nike swoosh was they paid somebody $25 to do that logo. She was a student at the University of Oregon and came up with that swoosh. And several years, we got paid $25 for it. And several years later, the CEO of Nike gave her $1 million in Nike stock because it was such a successful logo. So I thought that was nice that he did that. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but this is just give you a little bit of idea of the framework of a brand and what's involved. And so the top line I'm going to go through in a little more detail. So the core of the brand. the core of the brand is the brand values. What do you stand for? What is your uncompromising truth about your mission, your product, your business? And mission is really laying it out there and saying why you're doing what you're doing. What is the purpose? And then the vision comes into what you want to achieve in the future, what you see looking out with what you're doing. You've got your brand values, you've got your mission that you're set on. What is it that you're trying to do? Where are you going? What's the aspirational statement? And this is really good for customers because they want to be part of something that aligns with their view of themselves. And I think we heard a little bit, maybe it was from Amazon, I'm not quite sure. Somebody was talking about what tribe are you in or what group are you in? We have all of these groups of customers. You know, in the old days being when I was a kid, you know, everybody watched the same 3 TV stations. They listened to the relatively same music. So it was a pretty homogenous population compared to today. And today we have so many different fractions, if you will, or segments of group that we didn't have in the past. And so I call those tribes. These are people with like-minded attitudes and values and purchasing behavior. So part of your job is to match up your business with those tribes, and tribes plural, unless it's a really big tribe that can do it all by itself. Generally, you're going to have a handful of groups of consumers, in the case of direct to retail, that you're dealing with. And so then we get into brand messaging. You know, what are the 2-3 words that capture your fundamental spirit? You know, and you've seen these taglines or these statements that are usually associated with a logo. So you know what I'm talking about, the tagline. The value proposition. What is your value proposition? Is it I'm the cheapest guy, or I'm the fastest guy, or the best guy, or whatever the value proposition is with your product and service, or service, I should say. And then brand personality. Are you fun? Is your company fun? Is it serious? You know, what are the characteristics of your brand that people can relate to? And then message pillars, really, it gets into, this is more along the lines of campaigns, for example, where you might do a particular campaign and you're going out there with a theme. It might be, Valentine's Day or Christmas or some other theme that's pretty common, or it could be some other theme that you believe in or that you run across, and you can have multiple messages in each one of those themes. So you might go out with a holiday message, and you might have 3 or 4 different messages underneath that, and that could be in the form of ads or emails or social media, videos, any of the various ways that you use to reach out. Brand identity is really gets into how do you speak, or how do you write? What does it look like? What's the tone and the style of what you do? And then really where you'll probably spend more time, at least at this stage, is in the visual identity. What is your logo? What is the colors that you use? What's the typography? Do you have any icons or illustrations in your logo or in your material? And then, of course, photography. Photography is usually not directly associated with a logo per se, but it is often associated with a brand. If you think of someone like Patagonia or some of these other brands, they have imagery that you can associate with that brand. So let me do this. Okay. All right. Now this, I don't mean to drive you crazy. It looks like chemistry, but this is really, the point of this really is to show how all of your various efforts that you do, whether it's online, in person, on premise, events, it's all connected. it all has a connectivity, and you have to think about it that way when you come up with messages, when you come up with photos, logos, taglines, any of that kind of stuff. It needs to permeate through all of the things that you do, all of the points of contact, and even how you communicate to your employees and how your employees perceive the brand and how they perceive themselves working in the brand and being part of the brand. It's a really critical piece. In the old days, I think people used to think of advertising, for example, if you were to run a TV ad, that had no connection to maybe your website or no connection to your public relations efforts. It could just, each thing was kind of its own. And the new thinking is that it's really all connected one way or the other. Okay, so part of it, so once you kind of establish your brand to the extent you can in the beginning, logo and materials and so forth, you then start thinking about, well, how do I get the word out? And some of these tools you may be familiar with, you may already be using some of them, but marketing calendars and planning are a big part of it. This slide here is really talking about, it goes back to kind of that connected thing that I talked about, but here is kind of a roadmap of really storytelling, your brand story, and how it can be used around the different touch points here. Some of you do social media, some do blogs, email, newsletters, printed materials, all of these things that are on here are all kind of something that you have to think about as you tell your story. And one of the things that we hope to help you with as much as we can is with video, because video is very, very powerful. And the problem has been really, how do you use video? If you're a small business person, you're not really a video expert per se. And we have some ideas and some tools that will enable you to incorporate video much more often than you have in the past. And I think you'll be happy with how that works. Also, I think one of the things, and I don't know if any of you do this, speeches and presentations is a really great way to meet potential clients. And a lot of organizations have a need for speakers. It could be things like the Rotary, the Chamber of Commerce, the Boy Scouts, your church. Take advantage of opportunities to give speeches and presentations, particularly once you have your message, your brand story, your vision of what you're trying to do. And your job is to get people to sign up for that vision and to enlist them in your effort. And a customer acquisition strategy around speeches and presentations can be very, very effective. Even if you yourself aren't particularly comfortable doing it, perhaps you could find somebody, maybe an employee, maybe someone else that could act as your spokesperson. And providing content for events is something that if you've ever been involved in a service club, you know how hard that is to fill those slots with speakers. Okay, so this is a marketing calendar, and there are a variety of tools out there, which we're going to go over in a second. But a marketing calendar really lays out your plan, right? So what goes on this marketing calendar? So you want to have, for example, product updates. If you're going to be launching something, any milestone like an anniversary or reaching a certain revenue goal or a number of employee goal. These are all things that you don't want to just constantly go live with something that crosses your mind. You want to have a little bit of a pattern, a little bit of a plan, and pitch events, which some of you are participating in, industry events and trade shows, which at this moment are almost all online because of COVID, but there's a lot of them actually, quite a few of them. Social media and ad campaigns, and I would add social media ad campaigns, which are a thing also, email campaigns, print collateral, all of this kind of stuff can be put on this calendar and you can kind of keep track of it. So it isn't just a random walk through all of these things. it gives you a kind of an integrated approach. Some of the tools that are out there, Google Calendar, you're familiar with Excel, Google Sheets, some of these other tools like Trello and Airtable and Monday, almost all of them have free versions that you can use to kind of get used to and see if you want to use them. The content calendar apps, I personally am not that familiar with. I've heard of Loomly, but it's not something I've used a lot. But there are a lot of tools out there that can help you do this. You can start with a simple spreadsheet, a simple calendar, kind of just put the stuff in by hand. But as you grow, it's something you can turn into a business process within your organization. Okay, so
Hey, Dennis,
yeah.
do you mind if I say something real quick?
Absolutely, jump in.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been working on was doing some Facebook ads and posting a lot of stuff on social media. And it takes a lot of time to go to all these platforms. If you're going to Facebook and then you're going to LinkedIn and you're going to Twitter. And so there's some other applications out there, like Hootsuite is one of them, where you can go to that platform, kind of create all your content there, schedule it out, and then it just goes out. So you're not having to go all these platforms to enter it all in. And it's very, very productive and a lot more efficient than going to each app individually.
Thank you. That is true. There are a number of those. Buffer is another one that's free. We use Buffer at the accelerator. So if you follow our social media, you'll see that we post pretty often. And we had Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, I think, are the three that we hit most often. Facebook also. But the free version of Buffer allows you to post to 3 social media. So we're cheap. We're doing the free one. And so if you follow our social media, you'll see a lot of content there that hopefully is also helpful to you, because some of it is articles about different things that might be on your mind that might be able to help you. So how to convey your brand in a blink? If you're not Nike, how do you do that? So here they're giving some more examples here, but think about your logo as the short form of your brand. What do you want people to think or feel? And thinking and feeling are both important, and they're very different in terms of their impact on your business. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what do you want your logo to communicate? There are a number of tools and resources. There are designers out there you may know. There's also a number of free logo tools. Shopify as a company has a free logo tool, even if you're not a Shopify customer. So you can use that, and we'll put those links out for you. There's a number of sources. I've used a service called Fiverr, Fivver. That's a little bit different. You offer a certain amount of money and people bid on your project, and then you can pick the one that you think does the best job. And it could be $5 or $10 or $20 for a logo, and you might end up with 20 designers showing you ideas. So I kind of like that service. And the other thing with a logo, you have to keep in mind, how are you going to use that logo? A 4-color logo is pretty good on the web, but it's more complicated to do in print or in physical, because 4-color process is more expensive than black and white. So a lot of people go for text-based logos. You'll see that a lot. That gives you a lot of flexibility. You can always add a graphic to it, but you also can communicate in a lot of different platforms by using a text-based logo. And you'll see on here, you look at some of these examples like Walmart, Samsung, those are text-based logos essentially. The others, like Apple, of course, and Mercedes, Starbucks, there is so much money spent to establish this look that I find it sometimes a little ludicrous to think that we can come up with something that has that kind of impact on kind of a small business budget. But you never know, you might come up with something. So here they're pitching out some of the help. I really don't know what East Carolina has in this realm. It's something I'll look into. I know they have some of this stuff. I just don't know what's available to who, so something I have to look at. But there are a number of sources for this kind of thing, and we'll be sure to unearth them for you. And if you
Hey,
have any,
Dennis?
let me know. Yeah.
I'd just like to echo what you said. I've used Fiverr 2 or 3 times for different projects over the years for our charter school and for our new business. And we've had, we've had really great results, particularly in minimalist logo design. So
Yeah.
I would also recommend that as a good resource to get started.
Yeah. And I think there's a number of competitors to Fiverr that play the same sort of service. So it is good. And the thing I like, one of the things that people tend to do is they reach out to friends and family to get a logo design, and then you're stuck with a relative or a friend who really it's not that good, and you got to kind of deal with that, and you got to sometimes they go missing for a week or so, and you can't get the stuff back to you. So that's just something to think about. Getting a logo. Some of you have already done that, but some of you need to do it. So we look at a website, and I would argue also social media as your digital front door. And what's happened is, particularly with COVID, many more people are online than ever have been before. And you can probably read all the statistics, but it's a huge increase of online traffic, no matter what field you're in. So it really is your front door. And some of you had done a lot on your website. Others are just kind of getting started. And we're happy to help on that as much as we can. Okay. So some of this is pretty obvious. You've already done it. And in our one-to-one meetings where I've been reaching out to you all, this is what I'm trying to do, is really figure out what your priorities are and what you want to do. So establish your goals. What is it that you want the site to accomplish? I don't know if you're familiar with wireframes, that they're available online. That's something that if you work with a web designer, they may help you with that or provide you with that. Also called a content map. You want to have the features and the functions that map out to what it is you're trying to do. What are your business goals? Some people use a website to build awareness. Other people want transactions. It just really depends. Pick a platform that allows you to manage the content. And I think a lot of you do that. Shopify, some of the other sites that you're familiar with, Wix, Squarespace, etc. They're pretty easy to maintain the content. There is the WordPress platform, some of you are familiar with, and we do have some resources available to you. We've got a couple of mentors that have design firms and web design firms that are on our mentor page. So they're in a position to help you. We also have a resource out of Durham, a company that works with organizations like ours for members in our organization, and they can actually help with app development, and their pricing is oriented towards startups and people like ourselves, and not venture funded companies. Some of the designers are just so expensive that it's a waste of time, but we do have some resources for you. One of the things that's not on here that I think I'd like you all to be aware of, the speed of your site is pretty important. And the reason I say that is stats are showing that increasingly the traffic that comes to your website is actually from mobile. It's from a phone or an iPad. It's not from a desktop computer or even a laptop. Some of the numbers I've seen are 70% are mobile. And what that means is you have to see how your website performs on a mobile device. Does it fit on the screen? Does it load reasonably fast? Is it easy to navigate? One of the advantages of Shopify as a platform is they actually provide a mobile app as part of your deal with them. So you get a website, but you also get a mobile app that you can use for mobile, which I think is a huge advantage. And that's included in their reasonable monthly cost. So there's a website that Google puts out called PageSpeed Rank, PAGE Speed, and you can put your URL in there, and it will tell you how it ranks both on mobile and on desktop compared to your peers and other people. And they will give you a critique. If you are slow, it'll tell you why you're slow, what technically is happening that's causing your site to be slow. So you can fine tune it and do the best you can. Just again, to kind of back up a little here, one of the reasons that apps have become so popular is really because of this speed issue. Because so many people are using mobile devices, a lot of people feel like they have to build an app in order to have performance that works with a phone. Now, this is changing for a bunch of reasons, but what's happening now is some of the website builders are actually making your website, the front end of your website, what's called a progressive web app, a PWA. So the website itself is an app. It just doesn't look like it in a browser. And then what's behind that app, whether it's a database, a pictures, or whatever it is, it connects. So it's also known as headless e-commerce, meaning the front end is detached from the rest of the system. So the app portion acts as the head, and it's not part of the same technology behind that app. It talks to it, it communicates, but it's separate. So I just throw that out at you. I don't want to overly complicate your life, but all of this is oriented toward getting speed for your consumer that's coming to your site by mobile device. And depending on your product or service and the market that you're serving, you should learn who is it that's coming to those websites so that you can design accordingly. So we're going to talk a little bit about using social media. Okay, so this is an attempt to kind of define the different social media, and I'm not sure how I feel about it in terms of, is it really relevant? I think all of us kind of develop an affinity to a particular channel, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, and your customers are the same way. They may just like a particular channel and they may not even know the reason why they like it, right? It may not be subject to this kind of analysis, but this slide can help you think through how to use the different channels. And for example, on Instagram is a very visual social media. You must have a picture to post on Instagram, which is not true on Facebook. So if you're going to really build your brand on Instagram, you have to figure out how to provide that visual content, the photos, the videos, etc. Some of the other brands, I would argue Facebook really has a lot of older people on it. From my experience, they may be technically savvy, but they do tend to skew older than the Instagram crowd in terms of their age and maybe what their interests are. YouTube is important in a number of ways. And some of you may be using YouTube a lot. I don't know. But YouTube is a place where even if you don't drive people there primarily, if you create content like videos, you're going to want to post it somewhere when you're done, right? So if you posted it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you can create a YouTube channel and put all of your video content where people can go and look at it, and you can send them there. So over time, as you develop a library or a catalog of content, YouTube's a great place to store that. It doesn't cost anything. People are real familiar with it. There's a trust factor. They know what YouTube is. And you can do live streaming from YouTube. You can do things. There's some of these people that are making millions of dollars with YouTube. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And so YouTube it doesn't come up in conversation that much, but it's really very valuable to a business at a minimum as a place to put your content for people who might take more time and want to dig more deeply without having to host that on your website, which can end up costing money and becoming more complicated. YouTube is a really great place for that. And So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay. So communication tools, we've touched on this a little bit. But here are some of the tools that we've talked about. So if you're not a designer, you're not a developer, and you need to come up, for example, with content for social media, Canva is a really good tool. They have a free version, and they have a relatively low-cost paid version that gives you quite a few choices. And there are other programs like Canva. Adobe Spark is another one you may be familiar with. I don't know Designer that's listed here, but I'm assuming it's something like Canva. I don't know if you're familiar with stock photography. You probably are. There's a lot of free stock photography out there now. I use Unsplash quite a bit. I'm actually a contributor there, so I contribute photos as well. So I like that. I don't do, magazine ads or high dollar stuff, so I don't need high resolution photos. But there are a number of free stock photography, and of course there are paid ones. If you have a particular vertical that you want to feature, you can pay in some cases. Email marketing. Some of you are familiar with MailChimp, iContact. There are a number of these tools out there. We use something called Flowdesk primarily because it's half the cost of MailChimp, and it has no limit on the number of emails that you can send and how big your database can be. So it's pretty easy to design. A lot of the emails you get from us are from Flowdesk. Icons. This is more in the arena, I guess, of web building or content creation. I've not done anything making icons personally, but there are sources for that. The website stuff, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, WordPress. There's another one called Strikingly. The acceleraterural.org website is built on Strikingly. I really like it. I think it's the best one. They have a free version and a low-cost version. Has a lot of capability. It's all drag and drop, but there are a number of them out there, and you can use these also to create campaigns. It doesn't just have to be a website. It can be a landing page. It can be a campaign page. You can use these for a lot of different things. Infographics you're familiar with. I personally not good enough to create infographics, but that's basically those cool looking charts and stuff, that a lot of colors and lots of icons and so forth to communicate a message. Something I haven't done a lot of. We talked about Hootsuite. We talked about Buffer. There's another one called Sprout, and I'm sure there are others. These are tools that allow you to post to more than one social media at the time. Also allows you to schedule them, so you don't have to spend a lot of time posting to each one. Presentations. These might be more for when you're raising capital or you're giving a talk at the Rotary or some other group. Of course, PowerPoint. The Apple version, I think, is called Keynote. There are a lot of different programs out there. Prezi is another. You also can use the free website to create presentations and then present them on the web instead of in a document. That can come in really handy if you're giving a talk somewhere. You just call up the URL and give your presentation that way instead of trying to move a gigantic PowerPoint file around. And then video, we're going to be talking about this more. We have a lot of tools that we're going to make available to you, tell you about. Adobe Premiere Rush, some of you are familiar with. iMovie. There are many video apps now that are out there, and some really cool new ones. That one of the ones that we use, you actually give it a URL to a story or a blog post or a website, and it will automatically create the video using AI. It's incredible, and it takes about 2 seconds, and it's totally professional quality. It's really crazy. If you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see we have 3 videos. We have one called White's Farm, one called Queens of Color, and we have one other one. Those videos were created by that AI program, and it looks like you paid a ton of money to have the video done. It's really cool. So we'll share more about how to do that. The other products you might be familiar with, Photoshop, InDesign. There's a whole bunch of these, and what I've discovered is that a lot of the programs that work on an iPad are actually easier to use than a computer base. If you're not a Photoshop expert or an InDesign expert, there are apps out there that give you a lot of that functionality, and it's just use your fingers and create it. So, even I, who have very little talent, can create some really cool designs and photos and videos using the iPad version of a lot of these programs. Okay, so that's the end of this presentation. So I'm gonna stop the share, and like I said, I'm gonna make this presentation available to you all, so you'll be able to take a look at it, download it, or whatever, and dig into some more. But this is just kind of an introduction to branding. We're going to get into it more. We're going to have some guest speakers who do this for a living and can help you directly. And don't hesitate to reach out individually to me if you have something in particular you want to talk about, or you need a referral or suggestion on a technology or a person or a company. We're happy to help on that. So at this point, I'm going to ask, are there any questions or comments about what we covered today?
What was the name of the AI video program again?
I couldn't remember off the top of my head, so I'll send it out there. I can't remember. It's on my iPad, and I'll tell you what it is. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's something like Lumen 5, Lumen 5, I think is what it's called. But it's insane. So what I'll do is I'll go on. I use what is the name of that? Medium as a blog. So you can do a Medium posting. You can put pictures, put words, and then put the URL for that story into the software, and it will create a video automatically using the content that you put in the URL. So you don't have to storyboard, you don't have to do all of that creational stuff, and it will create it. It'll add music, it'll have call outs and text, it'll have audio, video. It's phenomenal. I really love it. And it is Lumen 5, Lumen 5 is the name of the service. And there may be others. I haven't really dug into it, but when you look at something and you put a URL and hit enter, and out pops a completely usable video, and you can determine how long it is. You can cut it, you can edit it, change the pictures, all that kind of stuff. So I like it a lot. Any other questions or thoughts?
I have a question, Dennis, and maybe a thought. What are your thoughts on being in we operate in kind of an economically depressed area of North Carolina, here in Halifax County in the corner, and anytime there's some new business, there are folks that get excited about it. We think folks are excited about what we're getting ready to do here too. We'd like to try to find ways to get some local media attention on it, which I think is generally going to be free and good, as long as the stories they run are and always in a positive light. So I've thought about press releases or reaching out to local beat reporters, but we think there's potential to get some media coverage out of Greenville or maybe even Raleigh on what we're doing. Do you have any advice on that? Any caution on that? Or anybody's get it started?
Yeah. This is really a great question and a great subject, and I'm going to go on maybe longer than you want me to. But one of the things that you all need to consider is content creation around your brand. And content creation is social media, it is blogs, it is articles in your website, it's press releases, it's all of the above. So what you have to do from a press perspective or from a media perspective is you have to be trusted and felt like you're doing something that makes their life easier. So I would do the research to find out who, whether it's TV, radio, or newspaper, who might be interested in what you're talking about. It could be, for example, the State Chamber of Commerce. Might not be somebody you would think about, but they have a pretty big reach. These small little newspapers, there's a million of them around. I don't know exactly how to deal with them. I'm not even sure their content production's on a local level. It may be or may not be. But the use of short video is really a great way to reach out to media. They hate reading. They're not going to read. That's why press releases suck. Nobody reads them. So a short video that tells a story, maybe followed up with, I mentioned Medium. Medium.com is a really cool service that enables you to kind of create content. You can put it on your website or link to it or whatever. But the video can be created from the content. So if you send a video with a link to the article, the person can watch the video, and if they do want to read it, they can. So I think that a routine creation of content, whether it's weekly, is something you need to do. And over time, you'll build credibility. You'll become a resource for the subject that you're talking about, which would be hopefully around your business or your idea. So I really like short videos backed by some kind of link to content that the potential media person can quickly get a sense of what it's all about. Because you got to realize these folks are bombarded with things like press releases. And I don't know if you've ever read any of these press releases, but no way in hell would I sit and read all that stuff, right? So you want to link them up to stuff like, Hobgood Farms bringing potentially millions of jobs to Halifax County. You want to be crazy, stuff like that, to get their attention. You don't want to be a liar, but you want to do something that stands out. That, what the hell's that guy up to? I think I'm going to give him a call. I'm going to talk to him. So something along those lines that kind of hooks them in the ribs and say, hey, I got something really good here. It could be a customer testimonial. If you happen to sell somebody famous, if they're willing to be used in a testimonial, even if it's just for a press release or a short video, that's very powerful. A politician like a mayor or a council member or a state senator or representative who can tell your story, anything like that can help get your story picked up.
Awesome. That was wonderful. Thanks for the extra input on that.
Yeah, no problem. Content creation is really not that hard on the web, but you have to do it on a regular basis, and you have to figure out where you're going to put it and how you're going to use it. But you can't ignore that. That's, especially, we're in Eastern North Carolina, right? This is a startup environment, so we're going to have to train people what to look for, what questions to ask, how things impact them. Because really, a lot of them barely can do email or Facebook, right? Let alone digest a sophisticated e-commerce strategy. So your job of communicating to the potential marketplace is really a critical part of your success. You can outsource it, but you're probably the best person to do it, especially if you just do short videos. And you'll see what I mean when you look into that program. You look on our site, you'll see on our YouTube channel and see some of the stuff we've done. I've been using those short videos to connect with the North Carolina legislature, for example. They used one of our videos in the North Carolina legislature to explain e-commerce and video. They used our video to explain it. So that's an example of how your content can be used when you provide it.
Very cool.
Okay, yeah, and I had a question on that. You said something about outsourcing it. So the social media and all that is definitely not one of my strengths, or my wife's strengths for that matter. She helps me with stuff. So I've got a friend that's kind of helping me with it. But she's not a full-time employee or anything. She's not quite doing as much as I'd like to see. And I can look in more into these short videos and stuff like you're talking about. But me myself, I'm more of an introverted person. I'm not very outgoing social, so I don't do much on the social media. So what kind of companies are out there, or should we get like an intern at a college or something?
I would go for the intern at a college just because they're awesome. I mean, they know all this stuff like you wouldn't believe. So if you can find an intern and look through that through ECU, I think they have internship programs, or the high schools. I think that would really make sense. But also, if you think back to the slides we were looking at earlier about your brand story, right? What is your story? What is it you're trying to do? That can be your social media, right? You can tell the story about how you found the pecans that you have in your business, as one example. That could be 2 weeks worth of content on social media. You could have pictures of where the pecans come from, pictures of the people picking them, the equipment shaking the tree. You know, you use your brand story and what you're doing, and use social media to tell that. That's what that does. So it isn't just kind of this abstract creation of graphics in a vacuum. It's really about telling your story, your mission, your values, why you're doing what you're doing, and telling that through social media channels and other channels, email, etc. So once you kind of go to the trouble to think through your brand story, your journey, your customer journey, what you're doing, that will inform what you put on social media. And it might be just text. You may not use any graphics at all. You might use a link in your social media that brings them to your website, right? Instead of a picture in the media. It's like, you know, we just got a bunch of pecans in from, or pecans from so-and-so, and man, are they good. And you put a link to the truck or picture of the truck or on your website of, you know, all the pecans in their storage or something. But that's what I was talking about, the brand story, the messaging, it all drives, it all stays on the same train, and you just use these various tools to get that story out.
Dennis,
Yes, sir.
into what Wayne was saying, I've hired professionals, I've hired to do the social media stuff, I've got people in the family to do it, the kids. It seems like that if you hire somebody, you don't really get no return off a great big investment at the end of the month. You know, my bill last month, 2 months ago, was $1,200, and I was like, "What did they do?"
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a hit and miss. I don't see no return off of it.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, again, I'll go back to, you know, what message are you trying to communicate, right? What is the story that you're putting on social media? What is it that you're trying to tell? So I think alignment with that is number one. Number two, I think it's important, for example, that you put on your websites Google Analytics, which is very simple to do. And Marco in our group can show you how to add that. It's free. And then you can actually measure the performance of various things that you do, campaigns, social media, your website, anything that happens. You can actually go and look and say, well, wow, that resulted in, you know, this number of visits or this number of transactions on our website. So that you can measure these efforts. It isn't easy. It takes a little while to figure all that out. But I would argue the first thing you want to do is, what story do you want to communicate about what you guys are doing? Now, in your case, Chris, you've got your farm and you've got your store in Goldsboro. So maybe that's two different, you know, stories, two different brands, if you will. And I'm happy to talk to you about that. And I think the answer in the short term for you will be interns that don't cost money and that do know what they're doing, and that we can help you kind of go down that path with us helping them help you, and see if we can't come up with a game plan where you can measure performance and not be put in a position of wondering, well, why the hell did I just spend all that money?
Yeah, that's kind of where I've been at, is why the hell did I just spend all that money for them to put up some pictures?
Yeah.
That, you know, and I'm like, my 6-year-old can do that.
Yeah. Well, we'll work with you on that. I'll help you figure out what's reasonable to expect and what can you do to reach that result. And I'll work with you on that.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Any thoughts? Okay. Well, that's it for today. We are, one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to put together the content that's relevant to this group. We did not know in advance, who our companies were going to be, right? It's not, it's something we have to do on the fly. So we ended up having 106 applications for this time. So we had a lot of companies, and we've chosen you all, we think, as the best of this cohort, the best group. And so we want to make sure we're listening to you, make sure we're providing stuff that's relevant to your situation. We can't do everything for everybody, but we can help and we can steer. And an hour a day, 4 days a week is that's a significant investment of your time, and I know that. And my goal is for you to say, "Damn, that was worth it." So that's what I'm about. And don't hesitate to reach out to me individually by email. You have all my contact information. I'll do whatever I can to help you. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you all
Appreciate it,
later. Take
Dennis.
care.
Appreciate it, Dennis.
Dennis.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.